Hello, Legionnaires. This is Maxwell from Legion of Myth, and welcome to Game Master Gauntlet, the one-on-one debate side of Game Master Insight. I'm truly grateful you are here with us tonight, and a very special shout-out to our first-time viewers. I hope you enjoy the fight, share with your friends, and come back for the next one. Catch us Sundays at 1 p.m. Central for RPG Digest, where we break down different systems, games, and settings through read-throughs, overviews, fundamentals, experiences, etc. And join us on Fridays at 6 p.m. Central for Game Master Insight, where our diverse panel digs into different playstyles, expectations, and experiences across the tabletop RPG hobby. If you want to support Legion of Myth, you can do it right here on YouTube and Rumble, or quietly through Ko-Fi. Links are in the description. I'll read Rumble Rant Super Chats at the end of the debate after closing statements. If you drop a Super Chat or Rumble Rant of $50 or more, I'll even take a drink in your name. Tonight, we have Daniel from Driving and Dragons on the side of more Game Master Control, and Mr. Max Boivin from Off the Rails Roleplay on the side of more player influence. Sincere thank you to both of them for taking the time for this debate. Be sure to check out their interesting and informative channels in the description. And with that, Daniel, you have 10 minutes for your opening statement.
Sir, appreciate everybody coming out here. Really where this stems from is a trend that I have noticed throughout the gaming sphere in terms of pen and paper games specifically. And really the more I've dug into it, the more I see that it actually does come a little bit from the video game side of things. Player agency really as a term is a video game design term. Because it's like, well, can I change weapons? Can I pick up a sword? Can I interact with an object? Is agency designed into the computer game. But we've all heard it since, I want to say the first time I heard it was before 3rd edition had even come out. And it was always as a cautionary influence on game masters to prevent them from taking a narrative game and allowing the narrative to control the players as opposed to allowing the players to influence the narrative, which is clearly something we don't want to do. However, that has morphed and evolved in modern gaming into something that I have come to term toxic player agency. And I mean that as the word, you take it literally. It is player agency which poisons your game. Now, start with the definition here. Let's define agency as it relates to this, because unfortunately, just like railroading and any other terminology that we tend to use in these kind of discussions, you end up in these situations where we fight each other, and neither one of us is using the same definition. So we're both right and we're both wrong. So I'd like to propose that the Oxford English Dictionary says it's the ability to make decisions and act independently. That is what I use as player agency. The player's ability to act independently and make decisions within the game. I'm not forcing them to make a decision. I am not forcing them to act in a specific way. Another way to say, like if you ask, does a person have agency? A person with agency means that they have the ability or power to make their own choices, to take action, and influence their own life and circumstances, or in the case of a tabletop role-playing game character, to influence the life and circumstances surrounding their character and to feel in control of those circumstances rather than external forces such as fate or luck. This is something that we should have in our games. That is the agency that we should have. Where it's become a problem is that increasingly, and I will say that this started probably late in 3.5. I don't really remember seeing it that much, but I did kind of start to, on the periphery, see it start to come in late in 3.5. We've gotten to the point where agency is no longer over a player's or a character's choices. It's no longer agency over a character's decisions in game. It's no longer, well, I want my character to try and jump across a gorge. I want my character to go into the forest instead of to the mountains. We have progressed to where the player agency is now agency over the outcomes and anything which affects the player. We have entered into a realm where you have things like what happened just today on X, a post that came out. It's one of those, whether or not it's true or not, let's be honest, a lot of the Ask Reddit and r/D&D nonsense that comes up over there is fake. D&D horror story, my ass, it never happened. But here, the question was, hey, thoughts about asking a DM not to kill your character? Coming from a DM, what does it say? I'm not going to read the whole thing here. We're not here to listen to me read off somebody's r/D&D post, but the whole thing goes into somebody comes up and says they have a preference for their character not being killed. And, I think this adds to it, but I understand that different players like to play different ways. And, I want to respect this player's agency. I want to respect what this player is doing with them not wanting their character to die. That is the ridiculous extent that player agency has come to. My initial use of the term toxic player agency, I developed that term very early in my channel, and it's actually what was the genesis of my channel, what made me decide to get on YouTube and start talking about games. Is I got into a Facebook discussion where somebody had come out and said that a player was bitten, or a character was bitten by a vampire and was turned. And the character was upset because they didn't want their character to get turned. And the comment sections exploded with, the GM is evil. The GM has robbed player agency by not giving this character a way out of being turned into a vampire after being bitten. And I looked and I said, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. If they don't want to play a vampire, tell them to roll a new character. Otherwise, play the vampire. Because you know what? My character didn't want to get hit in the face with an axe by that orc over there, but it attacked and it hit me in the face with an axe. And you didn't violate my player agency by telling me I got hit by one. It kills our games. Because what happens is your player comes in. Oh, we got a new player coming in. Well, I want to play a tiefling, but he has an Aasimar parent, and he also has these 9 different character classes, none of which exist in your world. And we also are going to, by the way, I'm going to have these magic items by level 5 in order to complete my character. And then you have an entire troop of players that have come up in the modern era who will tell you that if as a GM you do not work these things into the game, regardless of how it impacts your world as a game master or the other players, that you are now violating their player agency by not allowing them to have carte blanche to do everything. It extends into the nonsense of, well, you should always allow a roll. Always give them a roll. They want to jump across a 1 mile wide chasm. They're going to leap the Grand Canyon. You've already told them that they recognize that this is impossible. Well, you got to give them a roll. Why do I have to give them a roll? I shouldn't have to give them a roll. It's impossible. But no, you're robbing their agency if you don't give them a chance of success, regardless of how stupid their idea is. It leads to game master burnout, because at the end of the day, there's a player at the table that's forgotten. And that player is the game master. The game master's character is the world, the history of that world, the goings on in that world. And anytime the player interferes with the world directly in a way that is not concrete and physically related to their character, i.e., I pick up this delicious maple bourbon old fashioned. That is player agency. If the player says this is now apple juice, we're infringing on the agency of the game master, because the world and everything in it is his character. It leads to game master burnout, which is a relatively new phenomenon. We used to never hear about that. It leads to players not wanting to be the game master. It leads to new game masters no longer wishing to continue on that path, or deciding that you have to be some kind of super player with tons of experience to be a game master. Because every last one of them is terrified that the game will be bad because they have infringed on the sacred cow of this mythical player agency that extends outside the skin of the character.
All right, you done?
I believe that's my minutes.
Excellent. So hold on just 1 second here. Stop that, move that back, and then Mr. Max. All right. You have 10 minutes for your opening statement as well.
All right. Thank you for everybody that show up. I'll start that. And I want to say, like, player agency in role playing games is not just a nice to have, it is primordial to the whole activity, for the whole activity to remain a game. Players should have control over their characters, and they should have freedom to have their characters act as they think they would in a given situation. When you start limiting player agency, when you start restricting characters' action, you're moving away from playing a game and into the territory of telling a story to your player. Do not turn your players into audience member. It is very rude to invite your friend to play a game and serve them a story. Don't do the bait and switch. As a GM, accept relinquishing control. In the end, you will yourself benefit from it. You're also there to play a game. You just need to learn to enjoy the unpredictable nature of the activity. Player agency obviously does not mean that the character can do whatever they want. They are still limited by the agreed upon reality of the world that the character inhabit and by the rules of the game. But inside of that context, when the action of the characters are plausible and reasonable, it should at least be allowed to give it a try. As a GM, you have to learn to let your players have their character be cool. Nothing kills the momentum of a game like having to ask 20 questions to the GM every time that a player has an out of the box idea and want his character to do something. Player agency is also not to be confused with character agency. It is normal and desirable that the world will violate character agency. You do not get to choose to ignore gravity. You do not get to decide to not die when something or someone is killing you. And player agency does not allow for retcon. Once something has been established, it is canon. The narrative in RPGs should emerge from play rather than be pre-planned. The authorial voice of the resulting story doesn't belong to the GM. It is shared by everyone around the table. We get together to play a game and figure out what will happen with those characters in this world that they inhabit. The GM has a role of a different nature, but he is still a player at the table as well. We need to stop raising the GM to some kind of mystical level. Check your ego at the door. The non-GM players control the protagonist of this narrative that unfold through play. And in any good story, the protagonists are those who are driving the plot forward. They are not simply being pushed by the plot, not simply pushed around by the plot. There are too many self-important GMs trying to undermine the crucial role of player agency, the crucial element of player agency to serve their pre-crafted narrative. Player agency is the freedom of the player to have their character act, and to preserve the flow of the game, players should be allowed to have their character act without having to ask permission to the GM every time. From the GM every time, sorry. The flow of the game and having proactive players and characters are much more important than the little small details of the world. If we agreed upon the big picture of this world, of the setting, the tone of the game, you should be able to trust your players to fill in the blank of their the immediate surrounding element of the world, right? The world is the world of the character inhabit. They know it better. It's not about the players giving themselves or their character unjustified advantage or putting putting out of the blue spin on the world. It's about them being able to act in the moment in an instinctive and immersive manner. It's also about cutting down lore dumps. You don't want to ask your player to read and memorize the entire Bible before getting into the game. You also don't want to give a 5-minute description of every detail of every room that they step in. This is just too boring and completely disengaging. You also want to avoid the syndrome of the empty room. If you don't give a license to the players to fill in the blanks in their mind's eyes, and demand that they only visualize what has been explicitly stated by the GM, no local will feel real and lived in. The solution to the blank room problem is not more in-depth description that address the 5 senses. People telling you this are moron. The solution is shorter description that give the right vibe and the important or remarkable facts, but then you let the player fill in the blanks. This is where the co-creation come in, right? Too many GMs are in love with their own voice and try to impress their player by overly elaborate description or with their prose, right? The game goes better when the GM talk less. It's not about him. It's just one element of the game.
All right.
And I
that was an abrupt end. We should have like the military thing where you say over or something.
Over.
No, we're good. All right. Well, that ends that part there. So now it's 90 minutes or up to 90 minutes of discussion between you two. I don't care who starts. I'm just going to set the timer, sit here, and only interrupt if things get crazy. So with that, you guys take it away for the next 90 minutes.
Well, I would like to address a couple things. I do like that you do make a differentiation between both player and character agency, because they are different things. They have been blended together, and I do think that is part of the problem. It's I think it's indicative of another part of the problem that we have in pen and paper games in the modern era, which is that instead of players stepping out of themselves to live in a different role, we have gotten to the point where we attempt to take ourselves, and not us, but these players, take themselves and try to place themselves in the role of their character. And therefore, when you start attacking their character, you've attacked them.
Yep.
You have taken away their fantasy for themselves. And that is not a healthy way. It's not a good way or a healthy way to game. Now, there's a spectrum here. It's not a black and white issue. The real question is, at what point does the agency turn into something that is a game killing feature, or something that is even worse than a game killing feature, a group killing feature? I believe if you look back, some discussions that we've had in the past, that Mr. Max has had here in the past, he stated that, he doesn't like long games. He doesn't like lengthy campaigns that, 5-6 sessions, that sort of thing. That's your game. And then we move on to the next game. And it's a good thing that he does, because that play style, the more you allow the players to fill in the blanks of the world, the more of a hodgepodge you get, the more it starts to fall apart at the seams, and the less you have the ability to construct a lengthy narrative, be it collaboratively or driven. The issue, then there is obviously, let's look at it as a spectrum here. Let's look at it on a bell curve. On the one side, you have railroading. Railroading is the absolute enforcement. That is the brutal enforcement of game master agency. It is the game master has taken control of your characters. They don't have to say, I'm grabbing you. You are jumping across the gorge. They say, they put the world into a position where that's the only option. When you ask to do things, you don't have an option to do anything else. And it can take the form of literally, this is all you can do it. It can also take the form of everything you come up with that you wish to try is an automatic failure, has no way of doing. You're going to do things the way I do. That is the difference between a linear story path and a railroad. A railroad eliminates your ability to turn off the tracks. A linear story path simply says that the easiest way to get from where you want to where where you are to where you want to be is down this road and not through that tangled jungle. Not saying you can't go through it, but there's a clear and easy path. Now, on the opposite end of this bell curve, you have the other side where you have the players controlling everything. You got the inmates running the asylum. And it's I'm going to use 14 analogies here, so I'm just going to settle on this one. You're making a pot of gumbo. You need one person who is in control of everything that goes into that pot. All right. Now you can have the players come, hey, I think this would be nice to add. This would be nice to add. That would be nice to add. But if you have every single player coming in and adding their own spice to the gumbo pot, all you're going to have is indigestion. That's what you're going to end up with. Indigestion and possibly like some serious heartburn, because we're all throwing stuff in with no regard. Nobody is watching it. Nobody is controlling what comes in. And the game master there is to dictate that world. I have a question for you, Max. This has to do with character backstory. So pretty, I'll give you a scenario. I say that my character is he's the scion of a lost line. He is descended from ancient royalty. To what extent does the game master, what is the limits of how the game master can alter that reality? The player, where is the limits? Where is the limit of that player agency? How true is that statement that I am, in fact, the scion of a lost line?
That's one thing I talk a lot about is epistemology in a role-playing game, right? Epistemology is a question and philosophy of how do you know what is true, right? How do you tell something that, and it's a question like, the question of knowledge is a big one, right? Your character say that is the scion of a lost. That's what he believes. Is it true? Is it not true? That's up for grab, right? But there's so much like getting knowledge, right? All knowledge that we have in life or in RPG, to an extent, is provisional until we experience it ourselves, right? So, and again, it depends on the game as well, right? You might, depending on the setting that you agreed upon on session 0, whatever, when you created those character, and you come across and if you decide in game, okay, so you're there, like you experience that, so it's true because like you lost your throne, or like when you were like in your mid-teens, so you remember, you kind of know it's, so that's fine, right? And then that's true, but it's established and it's worked together with the GM already. But if just something from your backstory that's something that you've been told to when you're a baby and stuff like that, well, then that's a whole different pair of like people are wrong about all this kind of stuff all the time, even stuff about themselves. So there's that, right?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but correct me if I'm wrong here. A tenet of the 4D role-playing style that is just the ultimate end of player agency is that if it is not something that is already established and the player brings it up, they have spoken that into existence, correct? In other words, if I walk into a room and I say I pick up the orange juice out of the refrigerator, because it was not established beforehand that there is no orange juice in the refrigerator or that it's empty, the orange juice is in the refrigerator, correct? Is that
unless there's yes, it would be correct. We have like way around it. Like if there's a reason that there's not, right? Or there's like that like for some reason you cannot have orange juice in the refrigerator. Like if you're just going to a modern kitchen that is like functional and stuff like that, people live there, right? Then you pick up orange juice in the refrigerator. Like, yeah, why not? Maybe you have an idea with it, and I don't want to cock block you with saying no, there's no orange juice, right? I don't want to stop the flow. Say like, no, just ask if there's orange juice, because it probably doesn't matter. For me, like, is there orange juice? As a GM, I'm kind of indifferent. Yeah, maybe not. But for you, maybe you try to say something about your character with it, or maybe you have some idea about it. So I'll let you cook, right? I'll let you go with it. If we're like in a Fallout type scenario where the kitchen has been deserted forever, right, for a long time, right, and then you say you pick up orange juice from the refrigerator, it's probably going to be like not really orange juice anymore. It's probably going to be a sludge, right? So you still can go pick up a bottle of orange juice, but then as a GM, I can put a spin on it that kind of like say, well, yes, but no, yeah. So that's usually like the more elegant way we try to do it.
Okay, so I'm going to...
Oh, sorry, because I want to address like something that you said in your preamble to the question that you asked me, your lengthy preamble. About you talk about the spectrum about like player agency, right, and versus the GM agency versus the railroad, and I think like I look at those things on a different axis. For me, those two ends are on the same side. They're the side of people that want to tell a story. They come with a story in mind. They have a story in mind for the character. They have a story in mind for the plot, right? If it is on the GM side, and they want to protect that story over playing a game. If you're there to play a game in a role-playing game, because they're role-playing game, right? So if you're there to play a game, you should come earnestly. Like the game is figuring out what's gonna happen. That's the game element. That's why it's a game and not just telling a story. So you need to come with some earnest, like you need to be like genuine in that you want to figure out how things gonna unfold, and they unfold through play. People like that want to preserve the character. I don't want you to kill my character because I have this plan for what it's gonna become. You're doing it wrong. You're not supposed to know what your character is gonna, because you don't know the future. GM that are gonna put you on the railroad because they know where they want the story to go. You're also doing it wrong because you're not playing a game anymore. So for me, that's the real spectrum, right? That for me, that's the real like dichotomy that we have. It's like, are you telling me a story, or are you here to play a game? And I'm definitely on the playing a game side.
So let's make this more important, more meaningful. First, I do want to say one thing, and this is just a point of clarification. Often, I speak of this, and I speak of the world, of the game world, which is the game master's character. Game master's character is everything that is not a player. Saying I use player agency ends at the character's skin. So you constantly say things of the matter of protecting the narrative. I'm not speaking of the narrative, I'm speaking of the world itself. And because the narrative can emerge from the world, and there are things that happen in the world. So, for instance, if you look at the classic hero's journey, which is a classic story progression, you have two major things that are, I guess you would say, of importance, which would be like the call to adventure. And then following the call to adventure, you have what is usually referred to as the woman as temptress or the ordeal. These are both situations in which the world itself acts on the characters or acts on the subject in order to propel forward, give them an impetus in order to continue. This has to happen for the game to have any meaning. But there are some who would call this a railroad because I am now pushing the players in a certain direction. So if I have a character, does this infringe player agency, or to what extent does it infringe player agency? I have a character and I say that, my sister was kidnapped when I was young. And a big impetus for me to be adventuring is that I'm searching for my sister who was kidnapped by bandits.
Mm-hmm.
At what point does it infringe my player agency to alter that in any way? For instance, if the game master comes in and I find my sister, but it turns out, no, she was not kidnapped. My sister actually ran away with the bandits and is now a bandit leader, and I am on the opposite side from my sister. Have I now infringed on the player agency of that character's player by saying, no, you thought your sister was kidnapped. This is what your belief was. This is how you came across this information. But it turns out that your sister was, in fact, a co-conspirator who had brought the bandits into the town. She worked with them to rob your town blind. And it turns out that she is now the bandit queen. And this is what your character is experiencing.
I do not believe this violates character agency, because the sister is an NPC at the end of the day, right? The player, like even we allow in 4D style to co-create NPCs, but then like they're in the control of the GM still, right? Sometimes it's a gamble, right? You just like make up somebody. They're not necessarily gonna turn out. It's the same thing with the orange juice, right? It's not necessarily gonna be how you think it would be, right? So you bring something in the world, that's fine. We'll let you do it because we trust each other, and we trust each other. You're not gonna bring something that break the world or break immersion or stuff like that. But when you do it, it's not necessarily going to be how you wanted it to be, right? The GM has a spin to put on it. Like basically, when you bring something in the world, it still doesn't belong to you. You just manifested it, but it goes in the GM right away. You get what I mean? And it's the same thing with the backstory.
And I get exactly where you're going with that. And I do. This is one of those situations where I'd said to Max before that I think that in a way this debate is going to have a lot more agreement than disagreement, mainly because where the issue comes into is in the margins. All right. Yes. Oh, we trust our players. We've played together for a long time. We're good friends. We're all in this moving our pieces in the same direction. We are all accomplishing this with the same goal. We are all mature adults who are working together and doing this. And yes, this works. And the more freedom you have, the better that works. However, that's not the reality of 90% of this gaming world. The more freedom you give, you have now opened the whole world. You've now opened this idea that it continues to move forward, where the same scenario that we just discussed and we agreed on, by the way, we 100% agree on. You think your sister was kidnapped. You don't know, because that's not your character or agency. That's the NPC's agency, and therefore NPC, GM's agency to decide what happened with that NPC. And yes, that is a change in the game world that you have to react to. You and I agree that that is not a violation of player agency. However, if I post that exact same scenario on every Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Cyberpunk, Call of Cthulhu forum, and X and Facebook, I will get 500-to-1 ratio comments of garbage DM, violates player agency, never play with this person, absolute terror, destroys the game. And every single Jenny D, pointy hat person will have a video about how this is the worst thing ever out there. And you know as well as I do. And that is the toxin that has invaded the pen and paper.
I agree with you. Those people are idiots, right? Like, and they probably fairly new to the game, or sometimes they don't even play the game. They just have an idea of the game, and you can they can tell you some, you talk to them at some point, you try to engage with them, and you realize those guys never played the game. They just fantasize about playing the game. They have no fucking clue what they're doing, what they're thinking. And so much of when you give advice to the that's something I'm so tired of hearing, right? You give advice about oh, you should do that in your game, you should try that, or maybe that's gonna work for you, or that's what we do and it's working for us. And you always have somebody that say oh, I'm sure that's fine for you, but my player cheat all the time, or are fucking idiots. You always get it, or some kind of variation of that answer, right? And it's why do you play with fucking those people? It's don't people. It's so you don't have to play with anybody, any fucking buddy with a pulse. If people cheat, they're not there to play a game. They're not there. They don't get what we're doing here. If people are too retarded to follow the detail of the world and things that are established and get the vibe right, then they're not right for your table either, right? Send them back to the kiddie table, or they maybe should just stare at a screen all day playing video game, right? Maybe that's more their speed. Role-playing game are a bit of more demanding as a hobby. It's also something that you get better at over time, right? And sometimes, when we establish things and we co-create, sometimes we get something wrong, right? Sometimes we have mistakes. Some people, we're human beings, right? We're prone to error. Does it matter? So most of the time it doesnn't, right? Well, you said you said it was a love seat, and now suddenly it's a 3-seater because somebody misunderstood or what. Okay, whatever, man. It's it's a 3-seater now.
I get this. Matter. And I take what you're saying. Now, what you're saying is absolutely true. You're 100% accurate in literally virtually everything you just said. However, there's a major failing here. And it's the same failing that comes when somebody talks about Rule 0 or homebrew as the solution to a bad system. Yes, it is the solution to a bad system. You can homebrew and fix something. However, when I get on X and I say, hey, the cantrips in 5e D&D are a major problem, because cantrips may not have been intended to this, but the ability to cast these spells basically at will whenever you want to with no resource consumption severely unbalances the game, in particular in favor of casters. It allows them to excuse me.
But I agree with you so far that the cantrips are a problem. That's for sure. But finish your
That
point.
phone rings like, I mean, that phone rings like once every 10 days, and it just so happens to ring when I'm on stream. Anyway, so as I was saying, it's if when you're discussing something, like for instance, when we're discussing the how strong or robust a system is, say a Palladium game, we're discussing how robust that system is.
Mhm.
We have to discuss it rules as written, because
Yep.
if we're just discussing how I homebrew to fix something, then that conversation is different for everybody. And the answer is always, well, yes, I can rewrite the entire damn game if I want to. And the discussion becomes entirely pointless, because I can just rule zero everything. Sure, I can just rule zero everything. I can pick up this Dungeons and Dragons book and rule zero it into Call of Cthulhu and have a great suspense game. That's not the point. The point is, does the system as it's written work for that? The same thing happens here with player agency. Everything you said was indeed correct. However, it's correct in the idea of, well, as long as you have a great gaming group. Well, as long as you have, if you're playing with good people, why don't you just kick all the bad players out of your game? When we discuss this sort of thing, it's important to discuss it in generalities and to speak to the greater whole of the hobby and how to fix the problem to produce more competent players, so that you can have more competent tables and better games that get produced from those tables.
I'm not okay when I say, like, I'm being a bit facetious when I say, like, kick them out of the table, because I do believe that people can be reformed, people can be trained and stuff like that, right? Like, when I say kick them off the table, is like if you try to correct them and they still don't get it, right? They might not just be right for this hobby. And I'm okay also with, like, I have no qualm, I have no problem with making the hobby smaller by kicking people out. Right? So, you know what? Maybe you're better suited for board game. Maybe you're better suited for war game. Maybe you're better suited for video game, or maybe you're better suited to lick rock. You know, you should try that for a hobby. You know, it's like some people, that's what it is, right? I have no qualm about that. I don't think it's a hobby for everybody or for anybody. I don't really get the distinction. But the but yeah, you can, the important thing, like role-playing game is it's a huge hobby. It's very vast, right? And there's a lot of, like, moving part in there. There's a lot of, like, complex mechanics and those character and role play and immersion and role of the GM and creating world, like, there's a lot of thing going on. Like, you can get lost in the sauce very easy. So I think it's good to take a step back and think about what are those games are about. Why do we choose to spend our hobby time in those games rather than doing something else, right? And for me, and now, like for most people, when you ask about them, the idea of, like, slipping in the skin of somebody else and seeing how this character is going to act in those situations, stuff like that, that's what we can get from this hobby that we cannot get from really from other hobby. The freedom of action, that you can do whatever you want, that's one thing we can get from this hobby that you cannot from other hobby. There's even system that goes against player agency, because, like, systems that are overly complex and you have, like, a button for everything, right? Everything you have to do has to be a move, or like, it become a button press. Like, oh, you can do whatever you want, as long as you have something on your character sheet that say you can do it, right? Then that's also can get. I think those are poorly designed system, role-playing game system, because they lean more toward more like a board game mentality. The freedom of action, which is what player agency is about, right? That's why people go there. The immersion, that's why people go there. So in immersion, I will have to come. Immersion is seeing the world to the eyes of a character, and you're truly immersed when you have an emotional alignment with your character, right? It's not gonna be one-to-one, but if your character is scared, you're gonna feel a bit scared. If your character is excited, or you're gonna feel a bit excited. You should be. That's when you're really immersed in your character, and you get those with display urgency and the idea that you can fill in the blank and see the world to your character's eyes, basically, in your mind's eyes, but become your character's eyes. That's what you achieve this state. If you have, like, if I have to limit to explicitly what the GM has to say, And I always have to ask, like, well, okay, we're in the office. Is there a pen on the desk? Well, so now the GM is gonna say yes, because like, yes, we're in office. There's a pen on the desk, right? If there's not, it's gonna be kind of weird. And okay, you have to explain why there's not. Maybe it's like, so he's probably gonna say yes. And then okay, now like I was looking at the desk with my character's eyes, and now I can add a pen. Is there paper? Yes. Okay, there's paper too. Okay, so the picture is not fluid. You get what I mean? If the GM just say like you're in a desk, that obviously has been used recently, it's still, depending on the setting, the context, stuff like that, you can just say I grab a pen, a piece of paper, and I scribble a note, and that's fine. That's giving the license to imagine, and that give you the freedom to act, making choice, acting, describing those. That's what the game's about.
Yeah, but
That's
that's not
the
a
essential.
binary choice. There's the only options are not, hey, is there a pen on the table? And I go pick up a
Yeah,
pen.
no, obviously, yeah, of course, yeah.
Obviously, you can say, I checked the desk for a pen and pad.
Yes.
There we go.
I'm
checked
not
the desk
opposed.
for a pen and pad, and then the response is, yes, there's a pen and pad.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't find one. You
And
don't
I'm
have
not
to
opposed
say,
to that. Like I'm okay. That's something that I'm okay with. Saying that, like I look for a pen and a pad and stuff like that, and then the GM say, yeah, there's one on the desk and stuff like that. I'm not opposed to that. I think that's a proper way to do it, that you stay in character because you interact with the world by having your character act, right?
Well,
So that's fine. But it's just like, now if the pen and paper was just like, you really limit your character's perception, that you're again only seeing what the GM has explicitly stated, right? So what were you looking at when you were looking at the desk before the GM said yes, there's a pen and pad? Was it just an empty desk and now you have to correct that? You know what I mean?
well, don't forget that the game master, the game master has a secondary role that is often forgotten. The game master is your character's perception of the world. I tell you what you see because there is no actual. We don't have AI to the point where I can describe a room and it just paints the picture in front of you so you can literally see it yourself what your character sees. I tell you what they see. So when you act in that case, I have to give you that perception. The idea of I go pick up the table, it breaks it in the opposite direction. I'm going to go pick this up. Well, it's not there. Well, damn. Or it is there because that's the only way we can fix the 4D thing, is to say it is there if it makes any kind of sense. But you also don't want to ask the question, well, do I see it? Do I see it is not wrong. There's just better ways to do it.
Yes.
I do want to go back to a little bit of it's not an aside. It is definitely relevant. However, we've already established a system that you, as you said, you don't even really care about a lengthy game. And you've admitted that 4D is not efficient at it. What I will tell you is that a strong amount of GM agency is good for one-shots. It is good for short campaigns, and it can run multi-year campaigns. So it's really versatile, and it can run satisfying, complete games for just about any system and for just about any play style, period, as long as you don't get to the extreme margins. So the question is, at what point do we say that on that spectrum of complete railroad, you may as well be writing a book, to 4D role-playing, where in this spectrum is the optimal play style for the vast majority of the tabletop hobby? If you give me, I go to a convention, you give me a random group of 5 players, what play style is going to give the greatest level of success?
I just want to, before like answering, I just want to make a point. Like, I don't think like me not preferring, like we did have longer campaign. The thing that I don't prefer them, that has nothing to do with the player agency or it's just like at some point I just feel like I explore what this character had to live, right? And I hate doing the repeat. Like, people are gonna say like, oh, now we're at a low level game, so we're gonna do like a dungeon delving for like 18 months. Like, I'm not interested, right? I done it. I'm not against dungeon delving, but at some point this character I had, we get it. He did some dungeon delving, and long campaign for me often feel like a TV show that had been like stretched out too thin. It's been a great TV show if it was 5 seasons, but they made 12, right? and at some point it become like you get like the reheated. So that's the thing, right? About like why I don't like long campaigns. It's not a matter of a style of play urgency, stuff like that, right? When we did like a longer campaign, we could have like keep on going, but we just TPK'd, so that was it. But we found that as long as you have new character arc, as you know, like character evolve and have new goals and stuff like that, and his personality kind of evolve with then that's fine. That and as for if you were to go to a convention, that's a problem, because like most people, and that's one thing I'm trying to correct, right? If we try to give GM advice, it's because we supposedly see some issue with the hobby that need to be addressed. You cannot look at the current state of affair and say, oh, because like this is the way that's going to work with most people that have been played to play those games wrong. You know, people don't get it. People, because like there has been very little theory crafting about this hobby. People have been repeating, like people go on YouTube and they repeat the same advice for 40 years. They've been repeating the same fucking, not on YouTube, but the same advice that they just heard before. You look at their game, the advice don't work. They don't apply them because they're shit advice. That's pure and simple. Because people didn't stop. Nobody. This hobby has been discovered a bit by accident and evolved over time, but nobody or very few people took the time. And the Bro SR do it, which I can respect, even though we go on very different direction in our conclusion. But there's very few groups that say like, okay, wait, why are we playing those games and how those games could be better? How could they work better, right? And so yeah, it's just that people are repeating the same thing over and over and over again. So if you go to a convention play, and it's like Monopoly, right? Everybody play Monopoly wrong because nobody read the rules, because they always been taught by the older brother. Nobody thought about like except if you go like to tournament play and stuff like that, which is a different question. But like most people, and you say if we were to go like to just a random group of people playing Monopoly and just want to start playing, and you don't want to spend time discussing theory or the rules behind it, right? Then, well, people are gonna put like the money from the tax under the free parking, right? People are not gonna do the auction. People are not,
I get what you're saying, and perhaps I shouldn't have used convention as an example, and mainly because it drives us off into an actual convention play, which is its own total. It's kind of like bringing in paid GMs. Paid GMs are a different dynamic. Same thing. Just random players is what I'm saying. You give me a random sampling. Everybody who likes to play any role-playing games, line them all up. Just give me 5 random people. What's going to give the most satisfying example halfway through? I do want to address one thing that was said in chat real quick. Space Roadie had popped in and said the majority argument is weird. I just want to reiterate, there's a reason why we do the majority argument. It's not the majority argument. It's a generality argument. All right. And we're not talking 51% here. We're probably talking 99%. Mm-hmm. The simple fact of the matter is that when you have these kinds of discussions, and I do agree with Max that we don't have the theory crafting is a relatively new thing, at least as far as in the greater public sphere, I would say. And we have the internet to thank for that. And we're all arguing about the 1% who are beyond just, dude, give me my bag of dice so I can go play. And if I don't like the table, I'll leave. Mm-hmm. But when you have these discussions, you have to discuss in terms of the majority and the generality. Because I can sit here and say, well, man, having natural 20s in my D&D game always be a success is awesome at my table, so therefore it must be awesome for every table. Or I have a house rule that if you roll your dice while standing on one hand, that you get a +5 bonus. And that's a great rule to have everywhere. Or this is how we fixed that particular issue. If it's not something that's generally applicable to the majority, it's not a discussion that's worth having. Because as I said before, you can come to me and say, Dungeons and Dragons is just not a very good system for running a horror game. And I can say, well, that's great, but we use this list of home rules that just so happens to be the Call of Cthulhu players investigators guide. We use these homebrew rules, and our D&D game works great for suspense and horror. That's the same argument. You have to argue within the rules as written.
Yep.
When it comes to player behavior, you have to argue against for within the space of what is going to do the most for the most, and then allow the individual groups to make the minor adjustments necessary to make it the best for their groups. Max clearly gets the best enjoyment, and his table gets the best enjoyment out of extreme 4D role playing. I'm like the doctor over here, right? But
I'm like the doctor, right? I'm like the doctor that come and say, you know what, actually smoking might be bad for you. When everybody, like with the first one, when everybody's like smoking like there's no tomorrow, right? Which wasn't a thing back then, because like they didn't think that would affect tomorrow. And then say, no, actually, if you keep on smoking, there's gonna be like a nicotine's great, smoking not so much. But so that's the role I'm trying to have, and the rules and the detail per se, that's not like where I'm like, I think like that's too close to the ground. We're not even there yet, right? I like discussing rules and system that work well for this or that, or why this system is not great, because, and I think the bigger theory, the bigger picture has an impact, because I see a lot of new games now that are devolving to board game mechanics, right? There are, because the people designing them didn't understand the bigger picture, didn't understand the concept of role-playing game, if in the purest sense, in my opinion, right? And the thing that they do that are not that those other games don't do. And now, like, with a lot of people come to role-playing game after discovering video games, right? Older people, we would play like the role-playing game, pen and paper role-playing game before we got into video game, just because it wasn't a thing back then. But now it's the opposite. People like are learn about computer RPG before getting into pen and paper, and they bring bad habits from there as well. So it is a problem. So I think we need some people that are going to step back and say, well, wait, before you try to design something, before you try to change a rule, before you discuss which rule is good for what, think about what you're trying to do when you engage in this hobby. Think about what's important in this hobby. Is it about like having this cool character? Is it about rolling a 20? Is it about like having this cool character moment that you've planned for like 10, 20 session? Is it about like playing the same game for 30 years, right? I think you need to take a step back and say, why do I spend my time doing this rather than something else?
And I think one of the issues you get there is, as you just mentioned, it's like, oh, this great cool character moment. The problem is that a lot of them don't realize that the great cool character moment comes from something that you didn't plan. It's cool because it happened. It's not cool because you planned it. And I got two points to make on that. One is the example in favor of it. The most memorable character, I think, at any of my tables ever in the entire time I've been playing is a 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons character called Grog Willsmish III. He is a half-orc barbarian, and I watched this happen. The player rolled the most ridiculous set of stats ever, to the point that he put an 18 in intelligence as a half-orc barbarian, which means he had a 16. Point is, half-orc barbarian is technically an illiterate unless he takes reading as a skill, but he has a beyond Einstein level intelligence. And it led to all these ridiculous things where, like, he was a lawyer and he had an infomercial where he talked about how the books in the background were just for show, that he smashes the opposing counsel with an axe to win your case, and just stupid stuff like that came from him having an 18 intelligence or 16 intelligence. But clearly this was not a planned thing, right? And that's what brings it. That's where it emerges from. However, that does come from a video game mentality, and we have to adjust our thinking and our advice and the way we look at things to address the reality of that's what's coming in. A video game RPG player, the only agency they have comes in and I'm not going to say head canon, but in the way they feel about how they run their character in that game, because they're strictly limited by what the program allows. So, for instance, I'm going to be an asshole to everybody, but I'm still going to try and make this work. And what makes me feel accomplished in that game on my 15th playthrough is I'm somehow an asshole to everybody, but I still get the ending where everybody loves me. Classic example, you're playing Master of Orion 2. Everybody hates my guts, but I still get voted to be the great leader of the entire Galactic Council.
I want to say it goes even further than that.
Yeah, they take that into their role-playing game. And when you start to adjust to say, look, you don't get to pick your future, to them, that's infringing the only agency they ever knew before they picked up a dice or a character sheet or a pencil.
The limit, the video game violate player agency even further than that, because people are that's the obvious thing, right? That you only have the choice that have been pre-programmed in the machine, right? That's obvious. That's the first level. But if you think about it, there's also this thing that you have to accomplish specific thing in the game for the game to keep on going. You cannot just decide to go you know what I mean? So you're always on a railroad in a sense. You have there's those gates that you have to go through. Maybe you're gonna have some different way to get to them, but there's always gonna be those test gate that, okay, now you have accomplished that, now we can give you the next part of the game. In role-playing game, in pen and paper role-playing game, that shouldn't be the case. There's no gate that you have to cross, right? Because there's no destination really. Your character has goal and objective that you want to achieve, like we all do in life. Doesn't mean we're going to achieve them, and we can change our mind, our goal midway, right? So there's it's a very different beast, and it should be treated in a different way.
There is no gate that you have to cross, but there is a gate. And when do we get to the point where we have to stop in and say that the player is not allowed to say that there is or isn't a gate? They're only allowed to say whether or not they choose to go through that gate. They're only allowed to choose to say they decide to go out of the north, south, east, west end of town.
You're wrong. When I say a gate, I mean something that you have to go through for the game to continue. If the GM, if you're in a proper game, in a proper role-playing game that is played as a game, right? And GM made this gate and say, okay, once they're gonna reach the city, happen, and then the player decide never to go to the city. Well, there's still a game going. It doesn't change that. There's no oh, the game is we're gonna the next stage of the game once we go to that gate. No, you go to the next stage of the game every time a character act.
I understand the abstract. I understand the abstract you're making. But what I'm saying is that there is a difference between this is the information that you are gathering from the world. Events are moving in this direction. All right. You can go through the gate, as you have said. And when you go through the gate, it's going to you have this impact on what's going forward in the world, or you have the chance to have this impact on what's moving forward in the world. If you choose not to go through the gate, the world is going to continue in the predictable path based on the information you have. However, where we have gotten with player agency, and to the extreme that I will grant you it is beyond the method in which you use 4D role playing, and it does say that, like you said, your whole system relies on having a very trustworthy, mature, very skilled, or not necessarily skilled, but dedicated group of players to a particular style. Because when you get to the point where it's well, the gate doesn't exist, metaphorically speaking here, I have now altered the way the world is moving with my character. And in the annals of real life human history, I can think of 2 people who have had that ability. One was Genghis Khan and the other was Napoleon Bonaparte. These are the only two people that break the law of big man history throughout the
There's,
entirety of
come on,
human
like
history.
Julius
that I can think of.
Caesar, Charlemagne,
They
Hitler.
don't know.
There's so many of them.
Caesar is a product of what happened in Rome. If it wasn't Caesar, it could have been particularly Mark Antony was very much the same person as Caesar. He was just overshadowed by Julius Caesar. Same thing with Charlemagne.
When he got it shot, Mark
happen.
then he got it shot, he kind of bundled him up, right? It's like he just went to fucking Egypt and went native.
Napoleon Bonaparte only happened because he was Napoleon Bonaparte at that particular time. Nobody else would have filled that role
But anyway,
had it not been for him.
there's
Julius
plenty,
Caesar would have been replaced by a dozen other populists.
There's plenty of men that were mixtures for different reasons, but their impact did change the world in a lot of way. But that's not neither here nor there, right? But like in a role playing game, you hope that your player are going to do that, but they might also decide not to do that. They might be just the survivalist, right? Oh, you're in a setting where the world is going to shift, and there's all those options. Like there's the premise of the world, right? And things happen in the world, and the world keep on moving. The world doesn't just exist in a 100-yard bubbles around the character, right? It's not like Skyrim, right? Like when nobody does nothing when the player not around, right? So the world keep existing, and that's important to take into account as a GM as well. That's your job as a GM, basically. Like I often say, the number one priority of the GM is to preserve the verisimilitude of the world. That's and having a living world is part of that. But the character might decide, there's this civil war going on. I don't want any part of it. I just want to survive. And then you try to navigate your way through that. And that can be a cool story as well, right? Like you try to play both sides, or you try to not get involved when everybody will try to recruit you, especially when you start to get more powerful. There's all kind of, and maybe at some point you're gonna change your heart, and now you're gonna decide to take one side or the other, like for whatever reason, because like you see the novelty in one, or because the other one screwed you over. Those are interesting stories that can come up, that can emerge from play. But that's the thing, right? Like they say, you can come out. There's a civil war and there's this conflict going on, and then you hope the player is gonna take a side, and then that's the gate they would cross, but they don't have to, and the world keep on going, and they keep on acting. Also, I wanted to address one thing you said about like the GM being the perception of the characters, right? And that's also something that we kind of disagree upon, to be honest. I don't like when the GM tell the player what they see, what they smell, what they hear, or what they feel, right? Because for me, you say it yourself, the player doesn't see stuff at the player's skin. Well, if you tell me what I see, that's inside my eyeball, inside my brain, right? That goes much further than my skin. It's very invasive. Tell me what's there, and I can decide if my characters see it or not. Maybe I'm distracted. If you tell me like you see whatever I see, right? You kind of force me to react to it immediately, right? If you just say there is that, then maybe I'm busy, maybe I'm distracted doing something else, and then I'm gonna take a turn, and then on next turn, if nobody did something about it, I'm gonna say, "Oh man, you seen that?" And then I can react to it when I feel it's appropriate. Like we walk in the wood, and then you can tell, oh, you hear the rumbling of water. Okay, that's not, in my opinion, that's not great. Just say like the rumbling of water goes to the air. There you go. It does the same thing. But
let's play a thought experiment with that real quick. Okay, I'm gonna do something. What did I just do?
You flicked me a finger.
Did you choose whether or not you saw me flipping you the finger, other than probably looking away? Were you able to make a conscious decision to not see the finger that was right in front of your eyes?
No, because you draw my attention to it.
So when I say, even if I don't, what's on the bookshelf behind me?
I don't know. I didn't look.
You didn't look. But if I'd said to you, hey, you walk into the room and I say, you see a picture on the shelf behind me, it's because you noticed it. It was there. Now you can choose as a player whether you can do something.
If I notice it or not, I think that should be on the player. Just like, because there's no point. I say you see a picture on the bookshelf. You can just say like, there's a bookshelf with a picture on it, and then like, if I want to go look at it, I'll then. You said it. My player ear heard you say it, But depending on the character I play, maybe I'm playing a character that's distracted. Maybe I was like, oh, I walk in the room looking on my phone, right?
Right? Maybe
That's
you do
my action
walk
I
into
was
the room
doing, and
looking
then
at
you
your
just and
phone.
so now if that's what I was doing, you can just say like there's a bookshelf with a picture on it. It doesn't change anything to my action. If you
So
say there's a
I'm going to
bookshelf and
use
you see a picture
but
on
I'm
it,
going
now
to use a
you
D&D
just
example
grabbed
here.
my head. Sorry, you just grabbed my head and moved it and forced me to stare at it, right? And that's rude.
You told me you went into the room.
Yeah.
Okay. You're walking into the room. All
Yeah.
right. You're going to have to look in some way. I give you the
I know.
idea. I give you what you see.
never stepped into
I was
a
like,
room
okay,
like
I walk into the room while I'm looking at my phone, maybe. But no, see, let's go into the game perspective of this. And I'm just going to use D&D as an example because it's the easiest one to use and everybody knows it. Are we going to make a spot check every single time we walk in a room to determine whether or not there's a desk there?
No, you can no. You can't say there's a desk there. I'm saying as a GM, you're not the perception of the player. You're the narrator of the world. It's a very small difference. It's very into the weeds. A small detail, but you're the narrator of the world. You can saying like there's a desk in the room with some books on it and a thick layer of dust, right? And then if you just say that, and my player maybe is not very observant. My player is not like the streetwise kind of guy, so he's not gonna pick up on the thick layer of dust, right? I can decide that now because you
Well,
just
your
say it was
player can
there.
decide if your character does it. You can always say, well, my character was staring at his phone, so he didn't notice the picture on the bookshelf.
Yeah,
he didn't notice the guy giving him the finger on the camera.
But if you told me already you saw that, now like it goes into the retcon territory, which I don't like. It's just like but again, that's a very small detail. If we go like into the weeds and we say like, well, we say like, well, it's my player agency. Don't tell me what I hear. Don't tell me what I see. Don't tell me what I smell, right? Because like, just tell me what is there, and I interact with it when it enter my perception. My perception belongs to me, right? And if you told me it was there, I know that I'm allowed to notice it when I want, but I don't have to notice it right away. I can try to decide something because maybe I have an idea. Maybe I'm trying to do something that would be like that would notice me to act before I notice the obvious thing in the room, right?
If a bomb goes off, you hear it whether you want to or not. That's not that is an extent of agency that goes beyond the player's skin. There are certain things in the world, and as a GM,
if
I am
informing
you that you noticed these because I am the only vehicle through which you can notice things. All right. Otherwise, it's the opposite. We say Mother May I. People say Mother May I all the time.
Yeah.
It's Mother May I gaming. Is there a pen on the desk? Is there a pad on the desk? It's not. It's just it's the same problem on the opposite side. When it's like, well, there's a pen and pad on the desk. No, there isn't. There isn't a pen and pad on the desk. Oh, you thought you saw a pen and pad on the desk. You didn't actually see one. So you didn't go pick one up. I'm going to go pick up the pad and pen on the desk. No, you're not, because there wasn't one there. So why did your character go over there?
Why is there no pen and paper on the desk? Why is there no pen and paper on the desk? Why does it matter?
Because there isn't one. Simply because why is there not a copy of Atlas Shrugged on that bookshelf? Because my copy of Atlas Shrugged happens to be in a box in the next room. It's not on that bookshelf. And me going, hold on, I'm going to roll over here and grab the copy of Atlas Shrugged does not magically make a copy of Atlas Shrugged appear on my bookshelf. The world intrudes on you every single minute.
That would be very specific, to be honest. Like that would be like, because that's something like very like, it's very pinpointing, and that would be like kind of like that would be like that would be a transgression, right? But think about it when you read a book, right? When you read a novel and stuff like that. Like I like my description to be like that. Or when there's a movie, right? A movie like doesn't start by giving you a lore dump, or like there's not like every time like somebody enter a room, there's not like the camera panning on every fucking detail of the room, and then like the player can, and then the character can interact with it. When you read a book and the character enter like the detective's office, right? The office is going to be described, the vibe, if it's dirty, if it's clean, if it's been used in a long time, if it's stink because like the window's never been open in years and it smell like sweat, right? It gives you a vibe. But then when the character pick up something on the desk that is there, right? If it's something mundane, they're not just, like the book's not gonna tell you like, oh, and there was a there was a pen on the desk, and Bill went to pick up the pen. No, you can just go like, Bill, pick up a pen from the desk, and nobody's go, what? There's a pen on the desk. If like you describe this detective office like that, and then you go and Bill pick up like the bazooka that was on the desk, then you would be like, what? Where's the fucking bazooka come from? Because that's
it doesn't
jarring,
matter,
right?
It's mundane or common or not. And
it does.
The lack of an object being there may actually be something that's important. It may be something that's relevant, that's a tip off in and of itself. The fact that this desk is empty or that this desk does not have any pen or paper may actually be a clue for the characters in the player.
But that's unusual. But that's unusual. And if when you do your description to give the vibe, that's something that stands out, right? So you're gonna say like, you come in the office and it's completely clean, nothing on the desk, right? There you go. Then that's been established. So now nobody's gonna say pick up a pen from the desk because you established that it was empty. But if you didn't, we assume it's a normal desk that you find everybody went to an office, right? So you can assume things, and those assumptions are very important for the flow of the game, right?
You can make some of those assumptions, and some of that's true. However, when you move into a level of co-creation that has passed into the point that you are now invalidating the GM's ability to say no, you have moved the game master into the position of no longer being a fellow player and moved them into the position of being a simple mechanism to run the world outside of the gaming principle of you want to talk about it in an old concept of game master versus player. It's the same thing as player versus game master, as I am now having to work against the players to somehow correct this situation.
But what I want to attack is not the ability of the GM to play the game or to control the world or to say no. It's the desire of the GM. Like, why do you want to say no, right? Like, because I say if it was important, like I said, when you did make a description, note the things that are important or remarkable about the place.
What if you didn't notice
it to be short?
What if you didn't notice it? You just told me about how you don't notice everything. What if you didn't notice that right off the bat? You didn't notice it till you went to look and you found out that it wasn't there. I still have the ability to say no versus you willing things into existence. That's where the middle ground is. You don't have to ask, is there a pen?
Yeah.
But you also don't get to say, well, pick up the pen. No, you don't.
You pick up a pen.
I pick up a pen. I pick up the pen. I pick up a pad. No, you don't, because there's not one there. Okay. I look at the desk I look for a pad and pen. Okay. There isn't one. And it doesn't need to have, let's go ahead and expound on the esoteric.
No. Before you go further into that.
Well, hold on. It should only be done for a reason. I don't think you should just not do it if it's logical, you should allow it unless there's a reason for it. But aside from that, it's like, oh, it's important for what? It's important for the fact that it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, whether or not it's important to the game.
It could exist. It could exist.
It could, but it doesn't. Atlas
Shrugged. But why? Why does that exist?
It is not.
Why not?
And no amount of, it would be logical for Atlas Shrugged to be on a bookshelf, and on my bookshelf in particular, does not change the fact that it's not there. And that world is the game master's character. That world. Now,
there's nothing there. There's nothing there or not there. The world unfolds as you interact with it. That's how you figure out what's there.
What's there for you to interact with. There's not a pen and pad on this desk for you to interact with. No matter how many times you tell me you pick it up.
Tell me something, okay? If you're a player, how do you look at? Are you just looking at your character sheet? Or don't you visualize what your character goes through? Like, don't you see the scene through your character's you get in the scene, and then like the GM describe the scene, and then like you only visualize the element that is specifically mentioned?
No, you can fill in the blanks, but it's done in a specific manner, such as we're going to use your own example here. Well, how are you to say that I saw something? Okay, fine. You walk in the room, you see a bookshelf with a picture on it. Okay, didn't tell you what the picture is or anything. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I walk over and pick up the copy of Atlas Shrugged off of the bookshelf. There's not a copy of Atlas Shrugged there for you to pick up. Well, but you didn't say there wasn't one. You didn't list off all the books that were on the shelf.
First, like the copy of a specific book is
I
very
am not
specific.
reading that into your perception, but I am when you go look for that book. Now you saying, "Hey, I go look and see if there's a copy of Atlas Shrugged on the book, on the bookshelf." Or if you want to play it this way, is there a copy of Atlas Shrugged on that bookshelf? Well, you can't tell from here. You can't read all the titles. Well, I'm going to go look for it. Or no, you don't see one. That is including the environment of the world. All you're doing is trying to reduce steps, but eliminating you're reducing steps to the point that you eliminate the agency to control the world from the game master, and you reduce the game master to the program running the computer game. It just so happens the computer game allows you to do whatever you want.
No, we don't. Like the GM has
it's Minecraft versus a role-playing game.
No, the GM has a lot of agency on his own, and like I said, like there are the things like saying like, "Oh, I'll go pick up the copy of this specific book." That's going too far, and I would agree with you on that. You can go say, "I'll go look at the book on the bookshelf," even though you say there's a bookshelf and there's a picture on it, and you didn't mention there was also books. I would assume there would be books, so I'm gonna look at the books, and then the GM can say there's actually only 3 there, and there's this, and that. Or you can say there's a variety of different books. Most of the teams seem to be around that, and then you can make assumption from that. But it's like
the GM can say the bookshelf is empty, and you say, "Well, wait a minute, the bookshelf is empty." Yeah, when you looked at it, when you walked in, because here's the thing. We'll use the trick. I'm going to use a trick for you for this. Okay, and I'm going to tell you it's a trick, and hopefully this will work. Hopefully it's not something that you've seen recently or anything, and.
I'm going to interrupt for just a second, let you guys know you have 30 minutes left on this portion.
Okay, so if I ask you a question, I say, how many of each species of animal did Moses take onto the ark? What are you going to tell me?
How many of each species of an animal? 2?
No, Moses didn't take any animals onto the ark. No, it did. Okay, the simple fact of the matter is because your brain fills in those blanks. You walk into a room and it's like, oh, the bookshelf over there. Well, there must be books on it. No, your brain filled in there's books on it. There aren't any when you actually look at it. Why? Because your brain fills in logical gaps. It takes shortcuts to save resources. So you walk into the rooms like you just didn't notice that there were no books on it till you looked. However, if you're telling me you go pull the books off the bookshelf.
Like if I saw the bookshelf, I saw there was book on it or not.
Well, now you're telling me, oh, no, wait a minute. I'm going to get the book, and it's logical to assume that the book's there, but you can't say there's no books on it anymore.
To be honest, if you're the GM, you said it's a bookshelf. If you said it's a bookshelf,
that is even a true phenomenon.
If you tell me like there's a bookshelf in the room, right, in your description as a GM, and you didn't say there's an empty bookshelf, and I assume there's book in there, you did your job wrong. You made the mistake. Because if it's an empty bookshelf, there's an empty bookshelf.
You assume Moses did it.
Yeah,
there you go. I mean,
if you had said like how many of each animal have been taking on the ark, right? Then I could have said 2, and assume you're talking about the ark made by Noah, right? And that would be fair. Now you're like that's a stupid fucking example using there, right?
It's a perfect example because it shows you how your brain as
no. That it's not showing anything. It's the same thing when the kids say like
subconscious simply assumes.
No. It's the same thing when the kid makes you spell white a few times, and then they ask you what a cow drink, and then people say, "Oh, milk." Oh, you thought you tricked me, and say, "No, cow drink water." Right? Fucking idiot.
No, that's the whole thing. It is exactly the same thing.
Trickery.
This is the same reason it's so hard for you to edit your own work when you're reading through a transcript. Like if I missed more things editing when I did my book. I missed more things going through trying to do proofreading for my own story than I did for anybody else's by far, because my brain already knew what I was trying to say and corrected it on its own.
But as a GM, you have a job. As a GM, you have
2 words and is filled with misspelled words, and your brain corrects the spelling.
Listen.
Your
As a
character
GM, I have
walked
fucking job
into
to
the
do.
room and put the books on the shelf. But then when you looked for a book, I said, when you actually actively look at it, you notice that there's nothing
No.
there.
That's if I see a bookshelf that is empty, there's not like, oh, I don't need to take a second look. I know there's an empty bookshelf. So when you describe the bookshelf in the room, you said there's an empty bookshelf in the room. If you didn't do that, and I assume there's book, just roll with fucking.
So now it's
like,
the GM's
you
fault
messed up.
that the GM didn't inform you that it was empty because your character didn't notice it was empty until they went to get a book off of it. Now it's the GM's fault that you didn't notice something. But you just told me a minute ago that not noticing something is part of your character agency. So by respecting your character agency to not notice something, I have failed as a GM because I didn't allow you to notice it as a player.
GM, your role as a GM is to describe what is there, right? What is, you describe the reality of the world. That's what you do. You don't describe the perception.
That's not what is there. That's what isn't there.
That's exactly
you muted yourself, buddy.
Yes, enter. That's exactly what you're trying to do. Again, you're trying to play this trick where I describe you want to be the perception of the character, saying like, no, there's a bookshelf, but you didn't notice that there was no book in it, right? Just tell me if there's a bookshelf and tell me if there's no book in it. Tell me there's no book in it.
But now I'm violating your player agency that here's the thing.
No, because I can
it's the GM's job to describe what is there, but it's also his described job. You're also telling me that it's my job to describe what's not there. So now, once again, we've taken the GM. We go back to my original synopsis about where toxic player agency and excessive player agency leads to things like GM burnout. Now, as a game master, I don't only have to tell you what's in the room. I also have to tell you what's not in the room. So you walk into a room, there's a bookshelf. The bookshelf does have books on it and a picture, but there's also not an elephant in the room. There's not a tiger in the corner. There's a desk, but the desk doesn't have any pens, but it does have pads. Now you've just added all this to the GM because if I don't describe what's not there, you're just going to invent it being there.
A bookshelf implies book.
No, a bookshelf implies a piece of furniture.
That serves a purpose.
It serves a purpose. That doesn't mean it's currently serving that purpose. A car serves a purpose. That doesn't mean it's driving down the road.
No, but
there's a car in my driveway. It doesn't mean it's driving.
That's an assumption that people make. I don't know if you cannot make the difference, right? If you say like there's a pencil case on the desk, and I say I open it and reach for a pen, and no, there's no pencil in it. Well, then I guess that's fair because like now I have my first look into it and there could be like no pen in it, but it's not stupid to assume that I would no, you can just say like, well, the pencil case is actually empty, and that's fair, that's fine. But if it's the open like that, the bookshelf, right? You see it as soon as I see the bookshelf, I see if it's empty or not.
But how does that not contradict what you just said a few minutes ago?
Seriously, man. Seriously, are you doing that in bad faith?
Is a violation of your agency.
Are you in bad faith? Or are you like?
No, this is in good faith. That is a direct statement.
I know as a player that there's a bookshelf, if there's book in it or not.
But when I told you that you see something as a player, you told me that your character can't unsee it because of that.
Daniel, new concept: a distinction between player knowledge and character knowledge. Have you ever fucking heard of that? It's kind of fucking basic in RPG.
But when I told you a minute ago, just a few minutes ago, and if we had the ability to rewind, I'd say rewind it and pull it up. You stated that me telling you what's on the bookshelf is violation of agency because you might have been watching your phone. So what you've done is you've managed to create a situation where the player has their cake and eats it too by being able to randomly create stuff that is not presented, but also holding the GM to tell me, you have to tell me specifically what I'm not allowed to create as long as it's within logic. And now we go back to this. Now, I do want to make this clear because, and you're going to get this, and this is going to happen in the comments because it's already starting to happen with you. We're using ridiculous arguments to highlight a point. All right. No GM is going to have a problem with pens on a desk or books on a bookshelf if they don't matter. We understand that. We use extremely exaggerated, ridiculous examples that are just as black and white as they can be so that we focus on the point and not the example. We understand the example. But the simple fact of the matter is you flat out said that by me telling you what your character perceives, it's a violation because you didn't get to choose whether or not your character perceived that. However, if I don't tell you that you perceived it, now you get to invent it into the world.
No. I don't want you to tell me what my character perceives. I want you to tell me what is there. But you're telling me if it's obvious. Yes. If it's like, you don't tell me if I see it or not. Tell me if I could see it. Right.
Right. So do I now also need to tell you everything that's not obvious? Or I'm sorry.
No.
Rephrase that. Do I now also need to tell you everything that's obvious that you don't see? Because once again, let's say there's pad and pen on the desk. All right. No pad and pen. Well, you didn't say there wasn't a pad and pen. I should have known. No books on the bookshelf. Well, you didn't say there were no books. I should be able to assume there's books. Okay, maybe.
Like, you've been to an office before. Everybody has. You've been to a bedroom before. If I tell you you enter the bedroom, it's a messy bedroom. The bed hasn't been made. The door of the cupboard, there's a pair of pants hanging out of it, right? That's the description of a room. Do I need to tell you there's pillow on the bed? Or you can just assume they're there? You know what I mean? Then this description is very short, it's efficient, it gives the tone, and I don't have to tell you once in there, you see this, you see that, you smell this, right? You can assume those things. But there's a lot of assumptions you can make. Then
what if there is no pillow? You already said it's a messy room.
Yeah.
I go pull the pillow off the bed. Well, the pillow's not on the bed. Well, maybe the pillow's on the floor, maybe it's under the bed. But because of the 4D role-playing example, because of the excessive player agency, I'm now violating player agency because I didn't inform you that there was no pillow on the bed when you walked into the room. And you assumed it was there because it's logical to assume it's there. I agree it is. But now when I turn around and tell you that no, in fact, it's not, we have a player agency problem. Whereas if you simply say, I'd like to look on the bed for a pillow, or is the pillow on the bed? I can say, yes, it is. No, it's on the floor. You don't see it.
But like if you're daft enough to say like, oh no, there's no pillow, and you don't have like a specific reason for it,
I may have one. Or maybe it's a red herring. Maybe there is no specific reason for it, but I want that to be there to maybe provide a different opportunity. You don't have to follow it down or not. You don't have to go down that road, but maybe that's something you run off with that allows you to chase a ghost and then come back and be like, man, I chased that stupid pillow problem for half an hour. Doesn't matter. Maybe there's no reason the pillow's there or not there. The point is the game master said there is no pillow. Whether or not there's a reason is irrelevant.
Like, and if it's important that pillow or not on the bed, that's something you can describe. You can add to your description. You can say it's a messy bedroom. The pillow are on the floor. There's a pair of pants hanging out from the door of the cupboard. Right there, you go. Now the pillow is on the floor. If there's no pillow, you can say that like it's a messy bedroom. The bed is like don't have enough pillow on it. There's a there you go. You can add the important stuff that are remarkable.
But you don't want lengthy descriptions. And
no,
you just added length to your description by saying that I need to tell you that
the description need to be short. The description is better when it's short, but as long as necessary to establish the important and remarkable fact on it. Right? If something is not stated,
a pillow not being on the bed is not remarkable in a messed up, trashed room. Now, if you say you walk into a room and everything is pristine, it's very well made up.
Yeah.
That would be a situation where you would say, oh, there's no pillows on the bed. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Everything here is like hospital corners. Everything's everything's nice and clean. The bed has been recently made. It's very clearly done. You would notice that. But the room's messy, and I don't
for some reason. If it's important for some far out reason that there's no pillow on the bed, and the player go and reach for the pillow on the bed, it's easy to just say like it's just a pile of clothing that is used as pillow. Right there you go. There's no pillow. Just like, if you don't, for some fucking forsaken reason, it's primordial to your plot that you have pre-planned somehow, that there's no pillow on that fucking bed.
It doesn't have to be pre-planned. You even said it yourself. The verisimilitude of the world, the GM is there to run the world.
Yeah.
There is no pillow on the bed. It doesn't matter why there isn't one. It just isn't there, and you can't grab it. And I don't have to tell you
if it doesn't matter,
you go to get it.
If it doesn't
now,
matter,
what you've done is you decided that you can change the world in any way you wish, so long as it doesn't matter.
Yes, if it doesn't matter,
what doesn't matter. Who decides?
It's common sense.
You can say common sense, but maybe there's knowledge you have and knowledge I have as a game master. I don't have the knowledge of whatever crazy thing you've decided you want to do with the pillow, and you don't have any knowledge of why this room doesn't have one.
And that's my whole fucking point. Let your player act. Let the player of the character act and do cool stuff. Stop trying to fucking stop looking at your player with suspicion. Like, oh, why do you want to it's like you think about your mind like, oh, why you fucking reach for the pillow? I don't know what you want to do with it. I didn't foresee that.
I'm not looking at them with suspicion. I'm describing the world.
You are. You 100% are looking at them with suspicion.
I'm not.
If it's a problem with you, if you don't have a reason that there's no pillow, and a player wants to reach for the pillow, and suddenly it's important there's no pillow because the player, the only reason it's important to you that there's no pillow is because the player wanted to interact with the pillow.
Here's the difference. I already said earlier. I already gave you this earlier that a GM shouldn't just make an arbitrary decision. If it's one of those things that makes sense and shouldn't matter, you should probably allow it.
Yeah,
it's there. And this is a very subtle difference in why it's important. The difference in the approach is that your philosophy is it should be allowed no matter what, unless there is a reason, unless there is a specific reason, which means that if I tell you in your gaming group, oh, you don't find a pen, you immediately hone in on the fact that there's a reason there's not a pen here. Meanwhile, my players, if I simply inform them that there's not a pen, they're none the wiser, just like their characters, they are none the wiser of why there should be a pen there or not there. They just know that there isn't a pen, and they continue to exist in a realistic world.
If I enter somebody's office, right, and now I want to take a note, and I look on the office, and I can't fucking find a pen, right? Then that's gonna be suspicious. Me as a person, I would go in the office, and suddenly there's no fucking pen, no fucking paper whatsoever, wherever, right? I'm gonna say, what kind of office is that? There's no fucking pen. Whose office? What kind of fucking weirdo of an office like that with not a fucking pen around, right? It is. Of course, you pick up on it because that's part of the verisimilitude of the world. The verisimilitude of the world imply that you're in an office, there's going to be pens or something like that, right?
I mean, is it? Maybe we're playing Traveler and there's no need for there to be a pen there because it's all touch.
Well, that's obviously that's
I mean, there's a thousand reasons why there may not be a pen.
I'm thinking I'm talking in a modern setting, something that would be modern setting, society is not collapse, right? Those kind of thing. You would, but obviously it's all context. It's all setting dependent, context dependent, tone dependent, right?
Obviously. The office where I run my 3.5 game every other Sunday. The gentleman who owns it, if I go into his personal office, he does not have any pens in his office on his desk.
Doesn't do any work. Yeah, on his desk. But
he doesn't have any in his office, period, that I know. I haven't dug through his drawers. But the fact of the matter is he doesn't have a pen there, and there's a reason for that. He runs a technology company, and he does virtually everything off of various different computers and various different tablets and screens and stuff. Now, he's got dry erase markers for his dry erase marker boards. He's got various other implements that are designed for things, but he has a desk. It looks like a regular desk.
What?
Does not have any pens on it, and yes, I think that's the reason, but it doesn't matter. So
if a player was to say I pick up a pen on the desk, you could just say it's a dry erase markers that is made for the whiteboard on the wall. There you go. Problem solved. You made it, but also, does it matter? That's my point. That's more argument. There's thing more important than your little fucking control freak of GM, right? Say no, I decided there was no pen for some reason, and now you all have to adjust your imagination. Playing those role-playing games are collaborative experience. We're supposed to work together to go through this narrative, develop this narrative and see what's gonna happen with those characters. That's the whole fucking point of what we're doing. It's a collaborative experience. If you're always like trying to compete with the player and always like to or like bash head against each other, you're kind of you're not doing it right. Like you're
I've got
missing
a
out.
very clear distinction here. There's no bashing of heads. There's no competition there. There's no fighting against one another.
Then let them
It's
have
a
the pen.
very clear distinction, but that very clear delineation is that you don't create things in the world. You simply create character actions in it. The world is created by the game master. The world is run by the game master.
There was a potential pen created by the game master. Like if we're
choose what to do in that game. You choose
in the
whether
middle
or
of
not you want to
Sarah,
follow a plot line. You choose whether or not you want to react to certain stimulus.
Listen.
You choose whether or not you want to investigate something or not investigate something. You choose which way you want to leave out of town. You choose what you want to do. You choose that you want to search the desk. You do not choose what is in the desk or on it.
If we're in the middle of the Sahara and I say I reach out in the sand for a pen, then I created a pen out of nowhere. If we're in an office, in a modern office, in a functional company, whatever, right? You, the GM, by describing a modern office in a functional company, you created a potential pen. I'm just reaching out for it. You know, you don't have to like not every little detail that is there, right? It's part of like the setting of the room that you establish. Because I need to visualize that scene. I want to get in that room. You set the tone. You say how it was lit. You say like the state it was in, and then like, okay, I get it. It's an office building. I've been in office before. I've been in this kind of office before. I see what it would be like, and then I want to do something. It's probably not gonna be a big fucking thing. I'm probably just gonna take a note and stick it on the window for some reason, right? Like, be back in 5 minutes, and then like that might play out to be something later, but might not, right? It's like, whatever, like they're just that go with the flow as a GM as well. And it is not about me it's not about me creating the pen. It's about my character taking an action. It's about my character doing something.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. 10 minutes left.
Your character's taking an action with something that doesn't exist. Your character's taking an action that is magically creating things within the world that have not been explicitly stated there.
It's something that doesn't exist. Like you stress that point, like something that doesn't exist. Like
here's the thing:
we're playing role-playing games. There's nothing that exists or doesn't exist.
If you take that to its extreme end, you end up with the same problem that we have. That is an absolute cancer towards the development of new players. Now, I get it. If your whole thing is like, well, I don't care if the hobby dies. I don't care if it's extraordinarily small. I don't care if it grows. That's a great position to have. But the simple situation is that if you're talking about theory crafting, so to speak, within the hobby, you have to look at it as the hobby and as the whole. The extent, the ultimate end, the singularity of the collapse of 4D role-playing is actually the toxic player agency I'm talking about, where I have decided that I am not turning vampire because it is a violation of my character agency, regardless of whether or not I was bit, regardless of whether or not I failed to save. I have decided that that is not the ultimate end of the world for my character, so I am changing it.
But nobody would argue with that. Well, nobody on our side, at least, would argue with that.
Well, right? But that's because you have hit that limit. No. But you've also progressed into a limit that doesn't work for the vast majority, even of good, well-meaning players.
Because it's a problem.
The ultimate end of your philosophy is that player agency that has corrupted.
We have a fucking problem of control freak GM that always want to cock block their player because they don't trust their player to do anything, or they want to keep them on their track. Rather they admit it or not, they're gonna say, "No, I don't play railroad." 100% of chance that they do, right? If you cock block your player because like it's suddenly like you want to do something with a pen and you decide that it's so primordial that there's no pen there, right? If you're not able to let that go, I guarantee you put them on a railroad. 100% chance.
You've simply given them the information that something doesn't exist. You didn't tell them that they have to do something different because there's no.
It doesn't matter if it exists or not.
Okay, I pick up the letter opener and I scratch the. I was like, "Oh, there's no pen. Is there a letter opener?" Yeah, there is. Okay, I pick up the letter opener and I carve it into this desk. Okay, I mean,
But again,
you're
why
not
did it
eliminating
change?
agency by simply saying that something doesn't exist. Just like I'm not eliminating your agency to walk through that door by telling you it's locked.
Well, that I would agree with. Also, you tell me that it's locked when I try to open it, right? I go to the door to open it. Oh, it's locked. There you go. That you didn't invite my agency. That's fair, right? The thing is, like, it's so meaningless that if you stick up to something like that, and granted, we agreed upon, like, yeah, in most cases you probably wouldn't care, but for me, it's those little detail. Like, I want the player to be able to act. I want the flow, because for the immersion, I want people, like, you know, it's just like cutting like an interaction between GM and player. Basically, it's like I don't want to have, like, oh, is there? I look for a pen on the desk. Oh yes, there's a pen on the desk. Like, or you're gonna say, no, there's no pen on the desk. Okay, I look for the next thing that I could use to make a note, right? Like, I have a goal, right? Like, what are you fucking doing? You're just like fucking slowing the game down for no fucking good reason. And at some point, like, you're gonna keep saying, "Oh no, there's no letter opener that can be used to scratch on the desk." Okay, I look for a dry erase marker. No, there's no dry erase marker. Okay, then I guess I'll do nothing, and I'll wait until you give me your next fucking plot point, and you ask me to make a roll for some reason for the thing that you plan. That's what you do, man. When you start, like, cutting those things, not you personally, but like the.
I get the I get the rest. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
How many minutes do we have left?
5 minutes 48 seconds. Do you want to keep going, or should we
Man, that's a long
jump
time
into
to
closing
put that
statements
on.
now?
We can go on a closing statement if you want.
It's up to you guys. If you got 5 minutes left in you, I'll let it go.
Well, we've basically beaten the same overall point back and forth. In a lot of cases, we've fallen into attacking examples, which I try to avoid, because attacking examples doesn't really help.
Look, I mean, whether it's the folks in the chat, whether it's me or whether it's you guys, nobody here, unless you are and didn't tell me, nobody here is a professional debater. Nobody's got a doctorate in debating, or and whatever else. I don't even like those kind of debates where they spend like 9 hours just debating semantics and not actually having a point of view. I don't have to tell you my side of the. I just have to stop you from telling you. No, this was great. This is how I like the debates to go. I've been talking on Discord about this, where it's like, whether I agree or disagree with you, you guys have been awesome in this debate, pointing out your side. And if somebody doesn't like the fact that somebody isn't Socratic about this, I don't care. This is about getting the information out there for the gaming hobby, not for saving the planet and atheism, flat Earth, or Christian nationalism. Like, so this to me was absolutely fantastic, and I'm saying that now for a reason. Also, we only have one super chat. Technically, it's a Rumble rant coming in. I am not reading anything to these guys that is not a super chat or Rumble rant for the purposes of this video. We will just end it if that's what it comes down to. So if after closing arguments you want to address them more, you're going to have to super chat or Rumble rant that. Otherwise, I'll read the one that we got and we'll call it a stream, and we'll thank the guys for being here. Now,
pay up, bitch.
Yeah, pay up. There you go. I mean, remind you folks, this is a business still. Now,
Nobody rides for free.
With that said, since Daniel did the opening, he gets to first. He gets to finish last with the closing. So, Mr. Max, you've got 5 minutes. Let me stop this here. Hold on.
I'll be brief.
Well, I still got to put on the timer to just make sure.
Yep.
There we go. Putting on my old timer here. You've got 5 minutes for your closing statement, guys. And by the way, thank you to you both. And we'll get to that in a little bit.
So my point is, like, with the player agency, is like, you need, like, those games are meant to be collaborative, and you, the GM and the players are working together. The GM is going to provide opposition to the characters. That's part of the game, because we want to have this interesting narrative. We want to figure out how the world's going to interact with those characters. You're not there. You shouldn't look at them with suspicion. You're not there to always try to control them. You want to let them act. You want to let them be impulsive. You want them, because you want the game to. We're often into scene of action, scene of tension, and you want to keep that. You want to preserve that. So you want them to be able to act impulsively, and that require them to assume something that would be there. And if those things have no reason not to be there, let them be there, right? Your little ego, your suspicion, put them all aside. Come here in good in good spirit. play a game with your friend and see where it's going to go, right? He's picking up a pen, he's finding a broom in the janitorial closet. Let's see where he does with it. Be interested in it. Be fan of your player too, right? Be like curious about like, oh, okay, I didn't think that was there, but let's see where it goes, right? Let yourself, like, you see, it's gonna be very enjoyable. Let yourself be surprised by what your player come up with when you're not trying to clip them the wing at every step. On the other hand, obviously the players, you also have to, like I said, number one priority of the GMs to preserve the very similitude of the world, but that's also a duty that is shared by the players. You also have to not break the verisimilitude of the world. We agreed upon a setting, we agreed upon a tone. Try to stick to that. If there's thing that maybe it's a bit iffy, if you do a bit there on that, then it's good practice to say, I look for this. But if it can be assumed, I say the GM should let it be assumed. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
So at the end of the day, my point is not an argument against co-creation. There's not a problem with co-creation. And as I've said before, the vast majority of our disagreement is in the margins. Or rather, I should say the vast majority of our disagreement is actually in the bulk. And we agree that the margins are a problem. The discussion would be where inside the bell curve do we find optimal play? All right. What is going to be the most efficient method for the most people? So I'm going to use a driving example, given that I'm driving in Dragons and I work on cars. You have one side that says we are going to follow basically driver's ed rules. On the other side, we have somebody who says we're going to drive a race car. We're going to use out and out turning. We are going to rotate our vehicle. We are going to use late stage braking with straight line acceleration, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. The discussion is about what is the best thing for us to do on a public roadway. And neither of those things are correct. I know that there's going to be some driver's ed people out there who are ridiculous, but the simple fact of the matter is that if you are ignoring flow of traffic in order to obey a speed limit or to obey a strict thing, you're going to cause accidents and you're going to cause problems because flow of traffic is what dictates the safest way to drive. However, if you're out there trying to cut to the far outside, hit the apex, you're jacking the brakes going into a turn and flying out of it as fast as possible, you're going to T-bone somebody, you're going to tear something up, or more than likely you don't know what you're doing and you're actually going to caterwaul off into the woods and wrap yourself around a tree. And we both agree that you should be driving a certain way on the roadway, and it's neither of those two things. The difference is how much should we go over the speed limit? Should we, what exactly is appropriate yielding? How much space is needed to go into the traffic circle before from the person who's ahead of us? That's where most of our disagreement lies. My issue here comes in the fact that if we take 4D role playing and the extreme end of player agency at its most virtuous, it is a very dangerous tool for an advanced player. And we bring up players who have no idea how to use it, and it gets turned into a weapon. And it has been turned into a weapon that has not only destroyed the hobby, but has also started to destroy the actual products that come out in the hobby. All right. Wizards of the Coast, as much as I hate to try and, boogeyman things, Wizards of the Coast is a prime example of this. They're a business that adjusted to what sells. And they figured out that if they cater to players breaking games, they will sell more books. And every product that they have released since the 5th edition Player's Handbook has been something that has aggressively done do more as the player. Remember, player agency says that if you tell me I can't use the broken crap that came out in this new book, you're violating my player agency. We need to promote this idea, because as long as we promote this, that means we can always use the new book. which means we can always make the new book more powerful, which means that we can always sell the new book because it will always be used in the game, or you're a bad GM who's violating player agency. It's not the only, in business sales and stuff, it's not the only example. When you get to this extent, you turn your game master into somebody who is a service provider for the table. You may have a game master who enjoys that, but that is going to be extremely draining on that game master as an individual, as you are continually piling more work on them simply to maintain the verisimilitude of the world as multiple players, as I said before, continue to add spices to the gumbo pot. I'm a cook, but I can't stop you from adding. That is a problem, and it leads to a bad experience for the vast majority. I'm great. If you were all Gordon Ramsay and every last one of you has the exact same philosophy of food and you're watching what's added into the gumbo pot, yeah, y'all are probably going to make an awesome pot. But that is not the absolute vast majority of the hobby. And I'm not talking about just D&D, because I've seen it all. Oh, you can get away from D20. Oh, D&D.
That is time. All right. Okay. Well, there we go.
You're violating the agency, but that's all right.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm the moderator.
Me
This is a 2D moderation. So okay. Well, with that, we're gonna move on to the part where we let you guys argue with them. And like I said, I only got one super chat, so unless that changes here, the stream is gonna be ended pretty soon. It is what it is, but I'm not doing it any other way, because if I just randomly grab questions out there constantly, then we'll never go away. So that's my delineating factor, is going to be Rumble Rants and Super Chats. So Grizzly Beard, unfortunately, I cannot put this on the screen because I can put Rumble comments up. I can't put Rumble chats up for some reason, because who knows why. Grizzly Beardo over on Rumble says, I'm a little late, so sorry if this was already addressed. What are your thoughts on game mechanics that allow players to spend resources to introduce story elements such as Benny's in Savage World? Other than I hate the word Benny, it sounds like a 3-year-old. But what do you guys think of that concept of having some sort of luck point, or I forget what Pathfinder calls them, but that's the players can use to change something in the game?
Give it to Max first.
I'm against it, ironically enough, because I think oftentimes, like in the mechanics, those put them too far, and I hate retcon. Right, I want the game, like for me, like it's all about preserving the game flow, and those bennies, those meta currency, oftentimes just like, no, actually, like it doesn't have like a gun, he has a banana or whatever, like something stupid like that. That would be too gonzo, probably, even for those games. But I often find that it goes too far for once, and it's not what I'm preaching for. I'm preaching for being able to fill in the blanks for the mundane stuff, not to give yourself an advantage. That I would, that I'd say it's better to be left to the GM.
Okay.
I also have a problem with oftentimes all those benefit points or gain. When games say like, oh, you're gonna get a bennies if you make your GM laugh, like, go fuck yourself, man.
I think we do agree largely on that, though. I would have thought that your whole problem with the entirety of the meta currency situation would be that it puts a limit on how much you're allowed to screw around with the world. But that being said, it's like any other mechanic for me. You have situations like, for instance, in Everyday Heroes, the Mastermind class has an ability to directly retcon things with meta currency that is essentially, like, it's called, well, you didn't do that, or, this is how you're supposed to do that. It's got different things like that, but it's there to facilitate a very specific kind of play. It's meant to emulate like 80s action movies. And that is the guy who's like, hey man, you got your safety on. Oh shit, I got my safety on. Click, bam. That's why I didn't hit the bad guy with my shot, and I get to re-roll my attack because my first time I didn't have the safety on, or the first time I had the safety on. If it's well designed and well implemented and it fits with the theme of the game system, whatever, I'm fine with it. And a lot of times I think it can actually be an enhancement. Unfortunately, I believe it's one of those things that a lot of times is very ham-fisted and very arbitrary. Just like Max, I absolutely detest mechanics that are incredibly random. No, random's the wrong word. Incredibly subjective. Oh, you made the GM laugh. I was like, okay, well, if the GM laughs at everything I said, I'm going to rack up meta currency that has absolutely nothing to do with this game, because I'm going to quote Monty Python and I'm going to end up with a stack of meta currency. Yeah. Or I'm going to end up with somebody over here who is just doing nothing but trying to force jokes into the game, ruining the experience for everybody at the table because they're trying to turn everything into a joke to get meta currency. Any kind of meta currency earning, it needs to be one of those things where it's like, you roll a natural 20 on a D20 game, congratulations, you get meta currency. Or if you one-shot an enemy, you kill an enemy in one shot, you get meta currency or whatever that happened. It needs to be something concrete that does not arbitrarily influence gameplay.
Yeah, like I like meta currency for me. Like you need to be like diegetic, like you need to exist to correlate to something in the game world.
Yes.
So basically, not being meta.
Yeah. Well, it needs to be meta in the fact that it exists in the world above the game world. It does not need to be meta into something in the sense of a way to manipulate. What is it? Most effective tactic available is like, if you're using meta as most effective tactic available, 9 times out of 10 you're playing wrong and you're doing things the incorrect way. And I do mean you are playing wrong because you are trying to manipulate the game world with mechanics.
You also like
however, meta as in the higher level is fine.
It's like I wouldn't say like if you do like the most available, most efficient tactic available, that's how you play. Like it's not that you're playing wrong, but you're no longer role playing because you're not in the mindset of your character. Now you're wargaming basically. You're back to so which is fine, but something different.
Well, I mean, the place where most effective tactic available. And like anything else, there's exceptions to every rule. The place where that generally violates the game itself and is what I would call playing wrong is the fact that you are now making character decisions based on information that character would never or could never have. It's not a natural decision. You're doing it because there's a plus that doesn't exist in the game world that you can get for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. That's the overall problem with any meta currency system is it has to be tied to something concrete that's not easily manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another one came in on Rumble. Thank you very much for the $20, Law Dog. So who has the final say in a game? The GM or the player? It seems to default to the GM as he's the one agreeing to run a 4D game, and therefore the GM has the final say. We'll start with Mr. Max on that as well.
The final say, it's I don't even know what that means, to be honest, because like the guy that has the last word, like I guess it's the GM because he's gonna say, okay, that's where we're gonna wrap it up for this week. That's the final say. But other than that, we just like build upon like what the next guy before us said or did, right? The player have the final say with their character on what their character does or what their character does, and the GM has a final say what the NPC does, and just like that's how it goes, right? There's no like there's no final say overall on the role-playing games. They're a conversation, right? Like who's the final say in the conversation? Like, well, if you come at it with this kind of viewpoint, I probably don't want to talk to you very much.
Okay.
I mean,
do you want me to repeat the question, or you got it?
Go ahead and repeat it.
So he says, who has the final say in a game, the GM or the player? It seems to default to the GM as he's the one agreeing to run a 4D game, and therefore the GM has the final say.
Okay. And that's the reason why I needed it reread, is because I'm making an assumption that the spirit of this question is who has the final say in the way the game is actually run, or the way, whether or not what the level of agency is. And yeah, that is the game master, because if the game master's not going to run the game, there isn't a game. It's a different game if a different GM decides they want to run it. As a general rule, it's almost always going to be the game master. All right. Because no matter what the player does, the game master has to adjudicate how it operates within the world. And no matter what action you take or how you choose to do something, it is going to have either an effect either through direct action or through neglect of action. It's going to have some effect on the world itself. But there is, in a sense, the player also has the ultimate final say because he has the say to pick his shit up and not play at that table. You don't have to play at my table. And if I say, well, this is the way it's going to be, and you say, well, I'm going to pack my stuff up and leave, you kind of get the final say. So a lot of it depends on your definition of final say. From a purely in-game standpoint, it's going to be 99% of the time the game master.
There's also like another element that the dice. Oftentimes, those are the one with the final say because I'm strongly against fudging. But yeah, sometimes that's what it is.
So I got an update on that comment. It's because what's the title of the video? The title of the video did change before the live stream started. And so the title of the live stream is Player Agency versus GM Authority. Who gets the final say? That's why he asked that. So he said the final say, it's in the title of the video. Who gets the final say? Well, for this video, it's going to be me, but because I am a control freak GM.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, since that is it, thank you for those super chat. Oh, actually, they're all Rumble rants. Thank you for those Rumble rants over there. Appreciate that. And if anybody donated anything on Ko-Fi, you are silent supporters. You're awesome. Thank you. Nothing here on the YouTube side, although a lot of members were watching today, so I thank you for that. We're going to close up the poll. You guys can see. Go ahead.
I said a lot of new members too. It looks like.
Yeah, we got a few new members for the stream. A lot of re-ups, absolutely, before the stream started. Both of you, please. We'll start with Daniel on this one. Please shout out your channel, anything that's important to you right now, and then I think we'll call it a day.
Well, you can find me over on Driving and Dragons. I guess the big thing that I normally do, I do a lot of various things like 7 levels of various different role-playing things. And I do, Are You Experienced to talk about experience, and You're Doing It Wrong to tell you how to play the game. Pretty much everything on my channel is pretty tongue-in-cheek, and the most prominent thing is every Monday we do Intelligence as a Dump Stat, where I scroll through various different social media and stuff and find comments that people make in order to mock them. All in good fun. I avoid certain people that don't know how to take a joke, and it's generally not meant to be mean-spirited. It's all in good fun, except in very rare circumstances. More important than anything else, check out Corbid Codex over on Kickstarter. We're sick of bad writing. We're sick of terrible literature. We're sick of romantasy, manicore, whack-off session romantasy work. Wanted to bring back some good old-fashioned pulp fantasy and sci-fi, cyberpunk fantasy, sword and sorcery, all that stuff. It's 7 stories, 6 authors, 2 artists, all came together to do stuff the old way. And it's up on Kickstarter right now, and hopefully it will end up being a quarterly, or at the very least every 3 times a year series, where we're releasing a paperback anthology of good pulp short stories that are not going to make you want to tear your eyeballs out or wonder how this became a thing for people's fetishes.
All right, Mr. Max Boivant, same with you. Go tell us where people can tell us where people can find you and what you got going on.
Yes, my channel now is Off the Rails Roleplay, so you can find me there. The link is going to be in the description below. And at the moment, I have like a fortnightly show where we talk to a different creator in the RPG hobby. It's called As Long as Everybody's Having Fun. I don't have one in the upcoming Saturday. It's on Saturday, but like every other Saturday. I don't have one in the upcoming Saturday, but I had one last Saturday where we talked to DM Scotty, the creator of EZD6, which is a game system that we like a lot. And it was a very fun conversation. Obviously, that's why we do it, right? That's the whole fucking point of doing anything in the hobby space, having fun. So go watch that up. It's a fun talk, and we have like this creative segment in it where now we created like a gonzo culture. It's all random stuff, but like it's a fun show. Give it a try. Very different than what we've known me for before.
All right.
There you go.
Daniel, real quickly, can you send a link to Corvid Codex in private chat, because Rumble's asking for it? I'll just put it out there for both, and then I think we're going to end this. I do appreciate. I want to thank everybody. I do appreciate you all for being here. Once I get this link, there we go. I will send this to both YouTube and Rumble, and you guys can check that out. And then we're gonna head on out here.
So you can see what you're. You can kind of see what you're getting. There's several excerpts from stories that are in the Kickstarter description.
Okay. I love this debate. I'm sure people are going to complain about one person or other. People are going to complain about my moderation. I've watched enough debates to know that happens every time. I don't care. As long as these two guys feel that they got to say what they needed to say, and there's a little talking over, but that's going to happen when people get a little passionate. I'm cool with that. And as long as, from my point of view, I understood their points. Whether I agree or disagree is irrelevant. That's why I'm here. Believe me, I had lots of thoughts, and I'm like, I'm glad I'm muted. But this was their time. So I appreciate it. I hope to do this again. If you can think of other debates, come by the GMI Discord. Link is in the description. And if you're up to debating somebody, put it out there. We'll see if we can get it set up. But other than that, it is time for us to go. Hope everybody has a great night, and we'll see you guys next time. You two, if you can stand by just a moment.